Hey everyone, and welcome back to Sip and Talk.
I am ready for another deep dive.
Me too.
Yeah.
Especially after all the great feedback we got about our last one on transitional justice.
Yeah, that one really seemed to hit a nerve with a lot of you.
Definitely heavy stuff, but super important.
For sure.
But, you know, we like to keep things light and fun around here. So for this deep dive, we thought we'd tackle something a little more straightforward, you know?
Okay, I'm intrigued.
I've been kind of wrestling with this question lately, and I thought maybe you could help me out with it.
Sure.
Is democracy even possible in China?
Yeah, that is a big one.
Yeah. Maybe not so light after all.
Definitely a fascinating question, though.
Right.
And a super complex one.
For sure.
Where do we even begin?
Well, I was thinking we could start with what we already know.
Okay.
I mean, everyone's heard about China's economic rise, right?
Yeah.
They're like the factory of the world.
Yeah, building everything from iPhones to those little umbrellas that go in fancy cocktails.
So they clearly have a ton of economic power.
They do.
And that's given them a bigger seat at the global table. But their political system is a whole other story.
You can say that again?
It's like they're playing by a totally different set of rules.
Right.
And that's what makes me wonder, can a country be a global superpower and an authoritarian state at the same time?
And I think we need to unpack a few things to even begin to answer it.
Okay, let's unpack it.
First, we need to understand how deeply entrenched the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, really is.
All right, let's do it. But fair warning, I'm a very visual learner.
Okay.
You'll paint me a picture.
Right.
How does this control actually play out in everyday life in China?
Well, imagine a world where the government controls not just the military and the police, but also the media, the internet, even what happens at the neighborhood level.
Wait, so like even my nosy neighbor who reports me for leaving my trash cans out a minute too long.
Maybe not your neighbor specifically, but you get the idea.
So she's like secretly working for the CCP or what?
Well, they have these hyper-local party organizations that extend their reach into pretty much every aspect of life.
Wow.
And they don't exactly have a reputation for being tolerant of dissent.
Okay, so that's starting to sound a little Big Brother-ish.
A little bit.
Give me a real-world example.
Okay.
How do they actually silence opposition?
Well, the most chilling example is the post-Tiananmen Square crackdown.
Right.
After the protests in 1989, the government came down hard on any kind of opposition.
Oh, wow.
It showed the world just how far they were willing to go to maintain control.
Yeah, that definitely sends chills down my spine.
Yeah.
But what about all those theories and frameworks you political science folks love?
Right.
Is there one that explains how the CCP manages to hold on to power so tightly?
Actually, there is.
Okay, hit me with it.
Wan Lins, a political scientist who studied authoritarian regimes, argued that they rely on three key pillars: ideology, violence, and organization. And the CCP seems to have mastered all three.
All right, I'm listening. Break it down for me.
So, ideology means they have a powerful narrative that justifies their rule. Think about the whole national rejuvenation thing they've been pushing.
Okay.
It taps into this deep sense of pride and patriotism, making people more willing to accept the CCP's leadership.
So like a story they tell themselves and everyone else to explain why they should be in charge.
Right.
But what about violence? How does that fit in?
Well, as Tiananmen Square showed, they're not afraid to use force to crush any challenges to their authority.
Right.
It creates a climate of fear that makes people think twice before speaking out.
Yeah, I can see that.
Don't mess with the CCP, or you'll get squashed like a bug.
Got it.
What about that third pillar, organization? What does that mean in practice?
Yeah, what does that look like?
It's all about control. Remember those neighborhood party organizations we talked about?
Yeah.
They're just one example of how the CCP penetrates every level of society.
Wow.
They have their fingers in everything, from schools to businesses to the media, making sure their message gets through.
Wow, it's like this massive web of control.
It is.
Almost invisible, but totally inescapable.
Yeah.
Kind of impressive in a creepy sort of way.
Right.
But isn't there a saying about absolute power corrupting? Absolutely. Don't people eventually get tired of being controlled?
You think so, right?
Right.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Oh.
China's economic boom has actually played a big role in strengthening the CCP's grip on power.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
You mean getting richer makes people less likely to want democracy?
It seems counterintuitive, but yeah.
Is it usually the other way around?
You would think.
I'm so confused.
But think about it. For decades, China's economy has been growing at an insane pace.
Okay.
Millions of people have been lifted out of poverty. A middle class has emerged.
I mean, I've seen those videos of Shanghai. It's like New York City over there.
Right.
So they're basically trading freedom for prosperity.
It's a bit more nuanced than that.
Like, okay, you can control my life, but please just keep those paychecks coming.
But you're getting the gist.
Okay.
The CCP has very effectively tied economic gains to its own legitimacy.
Okay.
It's like they're saying, look at all the amazing progress we've made. Why would you want to change the system now?
I guess I can see how that would be persuasive.
Yeah.
Especially if you've lived through times of poverty and hardship.
Exactly.
But still, I'm thinking about that whole trade freedom for prosperity thing just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, I get it.
It just feels wrong.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and that's a valid feeling.
Right.
It gets to the heart of what we value as individuals and as a society.
Exactly.
But it's important to remember that not everyone sees the world through the same lens.
Okay, that's fair.
Right.
I'm trying to keep an open mind here.
I know.
But help me out.
Okay.
Why would people actually choose to live under such a controlling system?
Well, for some, it's about stability.
Okay.
They see democracy as messy, unpredictable.
I mean, it's not like democracy doesn't have its flaws.
Right. And let's be honest, there's been a lot of that in the world lately.
That's true.
China, on the other hand, has offered a sense of order, consistency,
Right.
and, of course, economic growth.
Okay, so it's like that old saying, better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Yeah.
But come on, there's got to be more to it than just a fear of the unknown, right?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely more to it.
Okay, so tell me more.
All right. Remember those 3 pillars we talked about?
The ideology, violence, organization thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they all work together to create a system that, while oppressive in many ways, also offers a certain kind of appeal to some.
Okay, convince me.
Right.
Why would anyone actually prefer to live under the thumb of the CCP?
Well, think about it from the perspective of someone who's lived through the chaos of the Cultural Revolution or the poverty of the pre-reform era.
Huh?
Suddenly, their lives are improving, the country is stable, and the CCP is taking credit for all of it.
Okay.
It's easy to see how that could create a sense of gratitude,
Right.
even dependence.
So it's less about actively choosing authoritarianism
Right.
and more about clinging to a sense of security and progress,
Exactly.
even if it comes at a cost.
Yeah, and the CCP is very good at exploiting that sentiment.
Okay, how so?
They've created a narrative that pits China against the rest of the world,
Uh-huh.
framing themselves as the protectors of Chinese culture and values against hostile foreign forces.
The classic us versus them tactic.
Right.
Works every time.
It's effective.
But how do they get people to actually buy into this narrative?
That's where the control part comes in.
Okay.
They've managed to build this incredibly sophisticated propaganda machine that filters every bit of information that reaches the public.
It's like that great firewall thing.
That's just one part of it.
The one that blocks all the fun websites.
Right. They also have an army of censors scrubbing the internet.
Oh, wow.
State-run media pumping out pro-CCP messages, and even control over what's taught in schools.
It's like they've built this alternate reality where everything revolves around the CCP.
Pretty much.
But isn't that super expensive and difficult to maintain?
You'd think so?
Like, wouldn't it be easier to just, let people have a little freedom?
It might seem that way.
Yeah.
But the CCP has found ways to make control work for them, both politically and economically.
Okay, now you've got to explain that one.
Right.
How can control be profitable?
Think about all those companies that want to do business in China.
Right.
They have to play by the CCP's rules.
Which means?
Which means censoring their content, handing over user data, and basically doing whatever the government tells them to do.
Wow.
It creates this huge incentive for companies to self-censor and toe the party line just to stay in the game.
That's cynical, but I guess it makes sense. What about the people? How do they enforce control on a personal level?
Well, actually, that's exactly what they're trying to do.
You can't exactly monitor every single person's thoughts and actions, can you?
Have you ever heard of the social credit system?
Oh, yeah, that's the one where they give you points for being a good citizen, right?
You're on the right track.
Like a giant rewards program for not pissing off the government.
It's a bit more complex than that, but you're getting the idea.
Okay.
It's basically a system that tracks people's behavior both online and offline and assigns them a score based on how well they conform to the CCP's standards.
That's starting to sound a little Black Mirror-ish.
A little bit.
But seriously, what kind of stuff affects your score?
Pretty much everything you can imagine.
Like what?
Jaywalking, littering, spreading rumors online, criticizing the government, even buying too many video games or spending too much time on social media.
Wait, so they're judging me for my Animal Crossing addiction?
Maybe. That's just not right.
But what happens if you have a low score? Yeah. Do they send you to a re-education camp or something?
It's not quite that dramatic.
Okay.
But the consequences can be pretty serious.
Like what?
You might be denied loans, banned from travel, or even barred from certain jobs.
It's like having your entire life dictated by an algorithm.
Pretty much.
And you're telling me this system actually works.
It seems to be the case.
So people are actually changing their behavior because they're afraid of getting a bad score.
There's evidence that people are self-censoring more, avoiding certain topics online, and generally trying to stay on the good side of the algorithm.
He creates this chilling effect.
Yeah.
Where people are less likely to express dissenting views or engage in behavior that might be deemed unpatriotic.
Exactly.
Wow, it's like this invisible hand controlling every aspect of society.
It's a powerful system.
But don't people get resentful?
You'd think so, right?
Isn't there a point where the desire for freedom outweighs the fear of punishment?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's one that nobody really knows the answer to. But there are some signs that the CCP's grip on power might not be as absolute as it seems.
Oh, tell me more.
Okay.
Give me some hope here.
Remember how we talked about China's economic boom being a key factor in the CCP's legitimacy?
Yeah.
What happens if that boom starts to slow down?
Ooh, good point.
Right.
If the free fries stop flowing, maybe people will start demanding more than just economic security.
Exactly.
But is there any evidence that's actually happening?
There are definitely signs of a slowdown.
Really?
Yeah, the growth rate is declining, the real estate market is shaky, and there are concerns about rising debt. If these trends continue, it could put a strain on the CCP's ability to deliver on its promises of prosperity.
Okay, that's promising. What else?
Well, there's another factor that could be even more significant in the long run.
What's that?
Technology.
You mean like the internet,
Yeah.
social media, all that stuff that the CCP is trying so hard to control?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the CCP is using technology to enhance its control, like with the social credit system and facial recognition surveillance.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's becoming increasingly difficult to control the flow of information in the digital age.
I like where this is going.
Yeah.
So you're saying that even the Great Firewall can't keep up with the internet's ability to connect people and spread ideas.
It's definitely a challenge.
Right.
And then there's the fact that China has a whole generation that's grown up with the internet, VPNs and access to information beyond the CCP's control.
Right.
They're tech-savvy, globally connected, and perhaps less likely to buy into the propaganda that their parents might have accepted.
Gen Z to the rescue. I love it.
Right.
But let's be real. The CCP isn't just going to sit back and let the internet undermine their authority.
Of course not.
They're probably cooking up some new ways to control the digital world, right?
Absolutely. They're constantly adapting and innovating using AI, big data, and all sorts of other tools to maintain their grip on the online world. It's going to be a constant game of cat and mouse.
So it sounds like there's a real tug of war going on.
Yeah.
Between the forces of control and the potential for change that technology represents.
For sure.
But how does this all play into the bigger question of whether democracy is even possible in China?
Well, I think it comes down to this. The CCP has built a formidable system of control, but it's not invincible.
Yeah.
There are cracks in the wall, and they're widening.
Uh-huh.
Whether those cracks will eventually lead to a more democratic system,
Right.
well, that's something we'll just have to wait and see.
This is getting good.
Right.
But my brain needs a break.
Okay.
Let's grab another sip and come back to this.
That's good.
You guys stay tuned for part 3, where we'll explore the global implications of China's rise and what it all means for the future of democracy.
It's going to be good.
Don't go anywhere. I just want to give another shout out to Micky from Mickytolife. His channel is a treasure trove of inspiration, and he's a huge Sip&Talk fan.
Absolutely. Make sure to check him out and maybe even share your awesome podcast intro with him once you've created it.
Okay, we're back for round 3 of our China deep dive. I feel like I need to do some deep breathing after all that talk about control and social credit scores.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to process.
It's like a real-life dystopian novel over there.
It's intense.
It is.
But before we jump to conclusions about China's future, I think we need to zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
Look at the bigger picture.
The global context.
Exactly what's happening globally that might impact China's trajectory.
All right, you've officially piqued my curiosity. Lay it on me.
Well, for one, the global landscape for democracy isn't exactly rosy right now.
Oh, no. Is this where you tell me that everything's terrible? We should all just give up hope?
Not quite.
Okay, good.
But we are seeing democratic backsliding in many parts of the world.
Really?
Even established democracies are facing challenges.
Like what?
Rising populism, political polarization, declining trust in institutions.
Hold on. Are you saying that democracy is in trouble everywhere, not just in China?
It's definitely facing some headwinds.
Man, that's kind of depressing.
Yeah, it's not great.
So if even the pros are struggling with democracy, why would China see it as a desirable model?
Exactly. The CCP can point to these examples and say, see, democracy is flawed, chaotic. Our system is more efficient, more stable.
Ugh, that's such a manipulative argument.
It is.
But I can see how it would resonate with people.
Right.
Especially those who value order and stability above all else.
For sure. And let's not forget about China's growing global influence.
Right. They're investing heavily in developing countries, building infrastructure, offering loans.
Exactly.
It's like they're weaving this web of economic dependence around the world.
It's a Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah, that's the one. And with that economic clout comes political leverage.
Of course.
A lot of countries are hesitant to criticize China's human rights record.
Right.
Because they don't want to jeopardize their economic ties.
It's a tricky situation.
So it's like a vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm.
The stronger China gets economically, the less likely anyone is to push them toward democracy.
It's a complex dynamic, that's for sure. But there's another layer to consider.
Oh, what's that?
China's rise has also sparked a global debate about different models of governance.
Wait, are you saying there are other options besides democracy and, well, whatever you call what China has?
There are definitely different flavors of democracy out there. Some emphasize individual rights, others prioritize social harmony or economic equality.
Okay.
And some argue that China's model, with its focus on economic development and social stability, could be an alternative for developing countries that are struggling with Western-style democracy.
I don't know about all that.
It's a controversial idea, for sure.
It is. So where does all of this leave us? What's the final verdict on democracy in China?
Honestly, if I had a crystal ball, I wouldn't be here sipping mocktails with you.
Good point.
The truth is, no one knows for sure what the future holds.
Okay, fair enough.
But I think we can safely say that the path ahead is going to be bumpy, unpredictable, and full of surprises.
Well, that's not exactly comforting, but I guess it's realistic. So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they be paying attention to as this whole China saga unfolds?
I think the key is to stay informed, stay critical, and stay engaged. Don't accept easy answers or simplistic narratives.
Right.
China's story is complex and constantly evolving, and it's going to impact all of us in profound ways.
No doubt about that. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the CCP's grip on power to the potential cracks in the wall.
We have.
We've explored the economic miracle, the social credit system, the role of technology, and even the global implications of China's rise.
It's been a journey.
It has. And as always, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, what do you think?
What are your thoughts on this whole China situation? Do you think democracy is possible there? Let us know in the comments. Slide into our DMs. Send us a carrier pigeon, whatever works for you.
Stay curious, everyone.
And that's a wrap on another episode of Sip and Talk. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time for another round of insightful and slightly tipsy conversations. Cheers.